Hi, I'm Susan Platt, and welcome to my new podcast, PLATT-iTUDES, Find Your Roar. Today, I'm in Chesterfield County with a woman, Kim Drew Wright, who found her roar, and probably a couple different times. It's my kind of household because her husband, Wynn, is in the kitchen cooking breakfast. So if anybody hears any pans clanging, that's him in there. And this house is so full of joy. You've got more animals, some we can't talk about, some we can, birds, chameleons, dogs, kids.
Right.
And today you're getting ready to go on a breast cancer walk. Right?
That's right.
Kim? So Kim, tell me about when you found your roar, or have you found it a couple different times?
I think when I really found it without even knowing it was the night of the presidential election.
Donald Trump.
Right, in 2016. And I think there was just something that kind of flipped in me like a switch that this is not acceptable, this is not okay, my opinion matters, my neighbors' opinions matter, marginalized voices matter, and women matter. And I think before that, it seemed like I knew there were things wrong in the world, but it seemed like the most horrid things were not in my backyard. But that election really made me reflect on what is happening right here in Virginia and in Chesterfield County.
So all of a sudden, last year when I was running, I appeared in a huge high school auditorium with had to be close to 1,000 women,
Yeah.
which was the Liberal Women of Chesterfield County.
Right.
How did you come up with the name? How did you organize it?
Well, at first we were Liberal Women for Clinton and Cocktails, which...
Clinton and Cocktails.
Yeah, which serendipitously was still LWCC. So after I realized that it was going to be larger than Clinton and longer, we changed it to Chesterfield County and beyond, because we do have members in Henrico and Powhatan and down south of us and in the city. And we're also thinking about now building branches across the country, Liberal Women United. So it's gotten huge.
Wonderful.
Yes. And so I knew I wanted like-minded people, and I did not think liberal was a bad word, although it has a lot of negative connotations. So part of our mission was, at least in the beginning, was to change that negative connotation so that people realize that, you know, yes, we're liberal women in Chesterfield County, but we're also your friends, your neighbors. Our kids go to school together. You know, we're not this strange, you know, person that you may have that in your head as a liberal woman who's, you know, always screaming at you or something.
Well, but kind of like the term feminist, how that changed.
Yes. Yeah.
So what happens when you hear Donald Trump call women an angry mob?
I just think it's ridiculous. I mean, you know, this is the man who could not say that about the Nazis marching in Charlottesville. But yet he calls women who are concerned citizens and mothers and wives and sisters, you know, a large part of the community, an angry mob for, you know, voicing their opinion. You know, having signs and things like that. I mean, that is what America is based on, is being able to voice your opinion, even when it's not agreeable to the tyrant in charge. So I think it's ridiculous, and I think a lot of things that he has said and done they're equally ridiculous, and that is why I think we continue to have such a passion and enthusiasm here, and I think around the country and around the world, to resist this type of administration.
What do you hear from women that come on board your organization more frequently than anything else? Has it been Donald Trump? Has it been a collection of things? Has it been healthcare? What's happened to some of these women? Why did they come on board?
Well, so there's so many things. At our very first meeting in November 2016, on these, there's one of the dogs.
There's one of the dogs.
But I listed on there, what is your biggest fear for a Trump presidency? And it was all over the board. It was that I'm scared my LGBTQ rights are going to be taken away. It was I'm afraid for the environment. It was, I'm afraid for my Latina neighbors. So there's so many things. And I think that is part of the reason why we are strong is that, our tagline is that each of our causes is all of our causes. And because there are so many causes that are all important. And I do feel like I heard a lot from women that we thought we were the only one. I thought I was the only liberal in my neighborhood. I thought I was only a Democrat. I thought I was the only one that felt this way. But now we realize that that's incorrect. There are a lot of us, and we just need to voice our opinions. We need to put our signs on the yard, because what happens when you put your Democratic candidate's sign in the yard is I promise you a few doors down, maybe a week later, there's going to be the same sign popping up, and that spreads.
Right.
And people feel like they have support right there in their community and that they are okay to voice their opinion.
Well, were you born here in Virginia?
I was born in Virginia, but I grew up a lot in North Carolina too, and some in South Carolina.
So what was your childhood like? Did you sit around the table and talk politics? Did you sit around and did you play sports? What did you do?
Well, my parents are Republican. So there's that. And we didn't really have discussions about politics growing up. So I would say I wasn't very political at all until recently.
Right.
And I had two older sisters, so it was pretty typical, I think. I played soccer. I do like soccer. I was a good student. I went to UNC Chapel Hill and met my husband, who's cooking in the kitchen now.
It smells good, too.
Yeah, it does. And so I think it was a fairly average American childhood.
So you moved to Chesterfield County. You're kind of a soccer mom, you're doing things, You're working, and all of a sudden this happens. So finding your war, sometimes there's different ways to do it. What were you working at before you did this?
Okay, so before I did this, I was a writer. I was writing fiction and like short stories and poetry mostly, and I actually was very interested in stories about women in other countries who may have been abused, and might be acceptable in their culture, as far as like raping women, honor killings, things like that. So I did have some level of activity or awareness as far as the women issues in the world. So I think that did kind of reflect, because the writing background is telling stories and being a witness to things. So I do think that played a role in my ability to call out for people to, start LWCC. And tell our stories, because I think that's important. I think everybody's story is important.
What are your kids saying? You have two kids?
I have three.
Three kids, and all these animals. Tell me about your kids.
So my oldest is 18, and he's got his last year of high school this year, so he's looking at colleges. He went to a college tour yesterday, in fact, which is exciting. And then my daughter is 15, and she unfortunately came down with PANS in February of this year, which is very shocking and for us and life-altering. Right. And that is pediatric acute onset neuropsychiatric syndrome, for those who aren't familiar with that. So we're still kind of struggling to
Is that treatable?
It's treatable, but there's a variety of opinions out there from doctors. She sees a neurologist in Baltimore and some other doctors here. So we're still working toward her recovery. And then my youngest is 12, and he just started middle school, and he's all over the place. And the boys like to play sports, and my daughter likes reading and art. And
what do they think when they see their mom either on podcasts or on television or newspaper? What do they think?
I don't know. Well, I think my daughter is more, I think she enjoys it more than the boys in a way. I think the boys, I'm not exactly sure what they think. I think that they're boys, have their own life and they're moving along. I think they think it's exciting too. I wish that the 18-year-old, we've had some conversations about voting and, things like civic responsibility with.
So he's voting this year?
Yes, but I'm not sure exactly who he's going to vote for.
That's okay.
He's 18 and kind of rebellious, so I may tell him. No, I'm just joking. Totally. I'm like, I may tell him it's November 7th. We'll have a few more conversations and see. I mean, I'm not going to tell him who he has to vote for, but I certainly hope he'll vote for Spanberger, who I love. But that's interesting, right? I mean, there is this family dynamic in each family, and even at the beginning of LWCC, I mean, one of the reasons I felt so passionately about starting it was that, I was getting texts from friends and family, and I had one friend texting me that she's crying and can't look at her husband because he voted for Trump, and the kids think they might get divorced. And so I think this past presidential election, it just became so much more than politics. It became a value system or something, like a deeper conversation.
Yeah. Have you seen a lot of women that are having problems at home because their spouses disagree with them?
I see some of that, yes, absolutely. And we have a small group called House Divided in LWCC. And I don't spend a lot of time in that group because I obviously I don't have that problem. Thank goodness. I don't know how they do it because it seems like it's such a juxtaposition right now between the parties that I don't know how you reconcile that other than maybe just not having the conversations, which seems kind of sad too.
I know a number of other women that are in the same situation, and it's very difficult. But
Right.
You clearly have a very supportive husband.
Yes.
You've got a great, lively home, and you're doing all these good things for women, for politics, and you're dealing with breast cancer.
Right.
How do you do it all?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's actually really good to have a purpose, so I'm not just sitting here crying over having breast cancer or my daughter being ill.
Right.
I think politics, it's still really important. And before, I was surprised by the numbers. In 2016, I think there were 17 women in Virginia, state legislature. And there's never been a female lieutenant governor. There's never been a female governor. There's never been a female U.S. senator from Virginia. So I was kind of shocked by that, and I don't think that is fair representation. I think that women do need to become very much. We need more civic engagement. I think we're really seeing that since the presidential election. So to answer your question about cancer is I do what's important to me, and so LWCC is important. My family and our health, it's of course important, and I would like to also stay writing and make sure to keep that in my life. So, and another way to answer that is, at first, all the things with LWCC, I felt compelled to do it, but they were it still is a full-time job. I don't get paid for.
Right.
I do not get paid for.
I think we all understand that.
No checks are coming to me. None. But instead of it being a chore, maybe at the beginning, it's more now just a part of who I am.
It's your calling.
Right.
It's your roar.
It's my roar.
It's your roar.
Right.
Yeah. And I think with that, you're helping other women find their roar.
Well, and that's one of the main goals.
Yeah.
Is to educate us, to support each other, and to encourage women to run for office. From board of we in Chesterfield County, all around 2019, board of supervisors, school boards, all of these boards are really important, and there is no reason why average citizen cannot step up and run for these. And we also have the House in the Senate. It's going to be a crazy year in 2019, but it's so much fun.
Well, when Mary Sue Terry and I founded the Farm Team in 2008, there was no other statewide women's organization to recruit and mentor women for political office. Women held, I believe it was 12% of the seats in the General Assembly. And fast forward, we merged the Farm Team into Emerge, and now women comprise nearly a 1/4% of the Democratic caucus, and nearly a 1/4% of course. We're getting up there. So it's taking a little while. We're finding our voices. We're finding our roars. Talk to me about Abigail Spanberger and what you're doing now for her.
So Abigail's great.
Or talk about Dave Bratt if you want to.
Abigail is really a candidate that you can get behind. I mean, like, people who meet her get very excited about her and working for her campaign. So she's, it's very easy for us to have members from LWCC want to volunteer for her. We've written lots of postcards, we're canvassing, we have new people canvassing every day, and that's the great thing. Virginia, every year is there's a race. So we're trying to keep what we have, because LWCC, this is another strength, we're not just about the campaign. So yes, we love Spanberger, we're going to get her through the finish line, hopefully for Chesterfield. But we are involved with advocacy issues. We're teaching people how to lobby. We're teaching, or people are coming to small groups and volunteering, in their community and stuff. So we want to keep the energy alive all year round, every year.
What do you think is the biggest issue with that they're advocating for, either on the state level or federally, with your women?
Well, right now the ERA is really hot, the Equal Rights Amendment, and so we would really like to get that through. There's only one state left to ratify, and Virginia could be that state. The problem is it has to get out of committee, and unfortunately the past few years Republican chairs have killed it in committee. I mean, that's just what has happened. I think we have plenty of votes to get it if they would just take it out of committee. So the Equal Rights Amendment is important to a lot of women, especially since presidential election has boosted that.
Right.
But we also have immigration issues. We have criminal justice issues. Scott Miles is running for Commonwealth Attorney for Chesterfield County this time right now, and we're hoping that he wins that. So, like I said, I mean, there's so many issues, and but the biggest thing, the easiest way to make sure our values are represented and the correct laws we want seen passed, is to get behind these candidates like Abigail Spanberger and all the House candidates and Senate candidates next year, so that it'll be easier to get, bills won't die in committee that shouldn't die in committee. Gun violence prevention, that's another one. We have a lot of folks on board with that. So yeah, and back to Spanberger. I didn't mean to cut her short, but she's awesome. I know her mom, I know her dad. I know her, and she's sincerely a good person. And I think she's also, a lot of these candidates, especially last year and this year, they're people who feel committed to do their civic duty. It's not just like, oh, I want to be this because it'll give me, a great name in my community and I can boost my career or something. Right. It's not like that. These folks actually care about their community, and they care about the people that they will represent.
How do you think politics is going to change now that there are groups like yours all over the country, all over the state?
Right.
There are women that have woke, that hadn't for so long, that are thinking different ways of representing folks. How do you think it's going to change? Right now we're in a period where it's exhausting, to say the least. What do you think will happen next?
I think we're kind of seeing it. I mean, I think we're going to get more, like, look how many women came into the House last year. I hope that we'll get to a place, and I hope that we won't get apathetic again, to where we have enough voices in there representing, our values, that it won't be as big a fight as it is right now. Although I feel like if we do get to that place. Hopefully we get to the place where it's commonplace, right? It's commonplace. It's not a big deal if a woman, wins a race. It's not a big deal if African American wins a race or LGBTQ. And then hopefully we'll stay there, at that safe place.
So, when do you have any downtime? How do you clearly after chemo you have to take a little bit of downtime, right?
Yeah. I'm just listening. Well, I'm on my second chemo drug. So the first chemo drug was called the Red Devil, and it was named that way for a reason. So now I'm on the second drug, and it is a lot easier on my body. Knock on wood. So I do feel like I have a little bit more energy now, but of course I can't. I learned even before, my daughter got ill and I got ill, that I can't do it all. So we have a lot of really wonderful women in LWCC, leaders that have stepped up from almost day one, and helped guide things, organize things. We have small groups, we have neighborhood groups. They all have leaders. Becky Connor, she does a lot, and Sarah Gaborick and Christy Glass, and they are now in the CCDC too, the Community Chesterfield County Democrat.
So how many members do you have?
We have over 3,600 on the page. And if you look at the analytics, is that the word, analytics? The computer stuff.
Right.
The majority of them actually are active on the page. Like they're looking and they're commenting and they're kind of aware. And then we of course have the members that are super active, like the ones I just mentioned. Right. And then we have folks that come to meetings. We have hundreds of people that come to meetings. And then there's always new people coming in too, which is nice. So now that we've educated, the first year we really had to educate ourselves because we didn't know which districts we voted in. A lot of it. I mean, I didn't even know. I'm like, what are these different districts?
Right.
And how does a bill become a law? And how do you go lobby? And how do you canvass? And how do you do this? And how do you work at the polls? So we brought in a lot of speakers and things like that to educate ourselves. And now I am trying to, remind myself, okay, now that you know all these things, it's the next year, but there are probably new members that don't. So we need to make sure, we're encouraging them to learn and to team up with like experienced canvassers and things like that. And we're trying to do that.
Today, you're leaving here and you're going for a walk.
Yes.
For a breast cancer walk.
Right.
And then what else do we got going on today?
Today it's pretty calm. I think we're just going to do the walk and spend some family time. And actually I have a lot of the LWCC ladies made some shirts, and so there'll be some of them at the walk for Team Kim. So that'll be nice. But I think after that, we're probably just going to have some quiet family time, some downtime today.
If I could ask you one thing that people don't know about you,
okay,
never been asked, that you think you'd like them to know about you, what is it?
I don't know. I like the beach. I've been fantasizing about going to the beach. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think I would like people to know that, I really hope that one day, because I feel like we're in such a divided time right now, that, Republicans and Democrats can be friends. We can come to some level of understanding and civility again, where we can work to create a community that we are all happy with. I don't think that that's necessarily a fantasy. But, I don't want people to think, oh, the LWCC, they're just raging, hate everybody. We're not about that. We're about helping our community. But we are going to voice our opinions, and we're not going to be afraid to do that either.
So you're going to roar.
We're going to roar.
I am so proud of you, and I thank you all for joining me for another part of the series, PLATT-iTUDES, Find Your Roar. And Kim, this is where I do this funny part where I roar. You want to join me?
Sure.